And on behalf of the Cultural Awareness Program Subcommittee, I'd like to welcome you to the dawning of a new day. Today marks the first in a series of cultural programs that are produced by the Diversity Committee and in part funded by your ASB to celebrate and to educate for our 2000 Year of Diversity. In the next few months, we will be offering a variety of programs that are listed on the flyer that you received when you came into the theater this morning. And these are very worthwhile programs that we're quite excited about, and we hope that all of you will attend all of these events. The overall objective of the Diversity Committee is best illustrated in a parable that I'd like to share with you this morning. It's entitled The Dawning of a New Day, and it goes like this. There once was a rabbi who was asked by his students, "Teacher, how should one determine the hour when night ends and day begins?" One student suggested, "Is it when we can distinguish a sheep from a dog in the distance?" And the rabbi said, "No, that's not it." And another student ventured, "Then is it when we can distinguish a fig tree from a date tree in the distance?" And the rabbi said, "No, that's not it." So the students begged, "Please tell us the answer." "It is when you can look into the face of a stranger and see your sister or your brother." That's what the rabbi said. And he said that until that happens, night is still with us. We hope that this year's cultural program will help all of us to see others in a new light. I am also very happy to say that our new president, Dr. Edward Gould, shares in our commitment to support the dawning of a new day through education, both here at our campus and in our community. It is my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Edward Gould. Would you please help me to welcome him now? Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. It really is my pleasure to be here today, and particularly to put the emphasis that the Board of Trustees and I have on this issue of cultural awareness in our community. The board did adopt a resolution just the other night confirming this as the Year of Diversity at San Joaquin Delta Community College. And we mean it to be more than just an action, but really an opportunity for you to understand the differences that exist in our community and in our state. And of all the experiences you have in college, understanding of others is the most important that I think that you will ever get. We live and we will continue to live in a very diverse community. The state of California will have no majority by the year 2005. The United States will not have a majority ethnic background by the years 2012. Understanding, getting along is what our world is about and should always be about. You're going to experience not only today, but in the series of events that have been planned by your Cultural Awareness Committee, the opportunities to really understand what other people are about. You'll get a chance to look at some of those things in our history that we should be not only ashamed of, but deplore. So you're in for an experience that I'm just really happy that this institution is allowing you to participate in. An experience of understanding, an experience to think about and to reflect as it relates to you as an individual, an experience to grow and develop and hopefully make our society better as a result of these experiences. So I'm glad you're here, and it's my pleasure to welcome you. It's also my pleasure to introduce the person who's really going to introduce your speaker today. And we're very, the gift of all of this is that this is a student activity, and I'm going to introduce Anish Prakash, who will introduce today's speaker. Enjoy the presentation.
Good afternoon, fellow students and esteemed guests. In a time where technology and new innovation is dominating this new century for hopes of achieving the unachievable, humankind has still not achieved what is most essential for our success as a whole. It is to diminish hate and prejudice for one another so we can achieve unity and live peacefully among one another. However, we are fortunate to have among the millions of inhabitants of this planet a few great people who devote their lives for the benefit of humankind to teach and to inform and to remind us of the dark and ugly effects of hate. One woman who continues to fight, to inform, and to educate on the atrocities of hate is Miss Elane Norych Geller. As a regular speaker at the Simon Wiesenthal Center in Los Angeles, California, Ms. Geller continues to educate and share her experience of surviving the Holocaust. Also, Ms. Geller speaks nationwide on the atrocities of Holocaust. Today, we are fortunate again to have Ms. Geller at Delta College to share her personal experience and insights. It is my great pleasure to introduce to you Ms. Elane Norych Geller.
This is beginning to feel like home to me. I was telling the people backstage that I am seriously thinking about moving here. The diversity, the beauty of this campus, and the warmth that I feel when I come here is definitely a possibility. I stand here before you as a mensch, as a human being. Not just a woman, an American, a Jewish American woman out of Eastern Europe, but as a human being. I believe passionately that racism, anti-Semitism, and bigotry of any kind is as catching as AIDS and any other communicable disease. And as I travel and repeat my testimony, which you'll hear in a few minutes, over and over again, I ask myself, as I hope you ask yourselves, why? Over and over the same thing, over and over again. Well, it's different each time because your questions are different, your history, your scripting comes to these facts, and what your concerns are is where the lessons are. This is about what we humans can do to each other if we do not work at respecting each other. It is about what I call ethical and moral and spiritual ecology. Yes, yes, I care about the rainforest and the ozone layer and all those good things, but I care about this more. If we do not understand that if you're not safe, I'm not safe. If I'm not safe, you're not safe. Then this can happen again. I don't believe it will, by the way, and we can get to that in a moment. I go from place to place and repeat my testimony, and the intent is prevention. It is not about having you feel sorry for me. It is not about worrying about only Jewish people. It is about worrying about humanity. I understand how low I can become when the planet is polluted ethically and spiritually and morally. I promise you, if anyone in this room were to try and hurt one of my children, I would kill you if I could. Isn't it therefore in my own selfish interest to do my tiny bit to prevent the planet from ever being that sullied and that polluted? It is a selfish journey. It is a selfish journey. The basic, simple ideas of humanity have been around since the beginning of civilization. We haven't learned them yet. We have at times, and many of us have, so they bear repeating. It is important not to be smug. You're at a college. You're getting an education. People say, well, how could they do this? They were so educated. With your PhDs and master's degrees does not come a Velcro code of ethics to your soul. That's something you have to work on constantly. You can be gifted in every single field of endeavor and be evil. Having said all of this, it is clearly to be understood that I do not like everybody. Not everybody likes me. It's okay. But I would defend with my life the right of every single human being to be treated equally in the eyes of the law. That's all I ask. You don't like me? Easy. Easy. Don't have anything to do with me. Don't marry my kid. Don't. But do not deny me my right to live in a land with dignity where everyone is protected by a law that's equal for everyone. It was the plan of Nazi Germany, of Hitler, to annihilate, to erase from the face of Europe all of the Jews of Europe. 11 million Jews were to be erased from Europe. More than half of us were murdered. Out of that 6 million murdered, 1.5 million were children under the age of 17. 5.5 million non-Jews, gypsies and gays and political dissidents and Jehovah's Witnesses and anyone that did not go along with the plan. The plan was to build a master race. The ideal was tall, blonde, and blue-eyed. Everyone in this room has seen pictures of Hitler, if nothing else. Hardly the prototype for his ideal. Very, very funny, truly funny, and also scary. Perhaps when people are filled with so much toxicity and hatred and ambition, maybe when they look into a mirror, they see what they want to see, not what's really there. These numbers, by the way, do not include soldiers. The 5.5 million non-Jews murdered, died, as mourned for, as grieved for, as the Jewish souls. But we have to remember, only the Jews were targeted for genocide. They claimed they were going to fix the others. Don't ask me how, I honestly don't know. Nevertheless, we have to understand the perpetrators. It would be much easier for me to stand here and tell you they were all easily identifiable. They were barbarians. They were ex-criminals that escaped. They were considered to be the most cultured, the most affluent, the most erudite people in Europe. Mozart and Einstein and so on. So we can't be cocky and complacent about our decency. We have to work on it daily. It's hard to be a human being, very hard. I was born in a small town in Poland called Wojcislaw. The town had in it about 4,500 people. Close to 2,000 of them were Jews. We Jews had lived in Eastern Europe for hundreds of years. We paid taxes, we served in the army, we did everything required of good citizenry, and never were we considered first-class citizens. Hitler did not invent anti-Semitism, guys. He perfected it to a science. We were hated before Hitler. And so we knew with the war coming, it would be worse for us. We were the yellow bird in the mine, the test case. My family consisted of mother and father, 2 older brothers, an older sister. I was the youngest, aunts, uncles, cousins. Everything I hope and pray is in your lives. I was imprisoned, one of the youngest survivors, from age 4 till well past 8, almost 5 years, simply and only because I was a Jew. Children that survived most often were hidden for part of the time. I was never hidden, always in full view of the Nazis. And we Jews knew that this madman was loose, that he was conducting 2 wars, the war of conquest and the war against the Jews with equal passion. And of course, as I said, war is not good for anybody, and it was worse for us. And so what families throughout Europe did, if they could, if they thought it was a good idea, if they had somebody to help them, was try to provide some kind of little bit of extra cushioning, haven, protection for those members in their family that might not do well on their own, such as a 4-year-old or a very elderly or a very disabled person. And in my family, I was 4. My father hired a young seminarian to tutor me at age 4 in the kinds of things that I would need to know in order to pass as a Christian child in that particular setting. Warsaw or Krakow, much larger centers. This might not have been necessary, but a small town in Poland where everything centers around the church. Poland throughout its history and to the present, an extremely devout and religious country. His Holiness at present, the Pope, is Polish, born not too far from Wojciech. And even when there was such a thing as communism, they did not mess with the church. They knew better. So a child of 4, if she was going to pass as a Christian, needed to be taught and prepared. And both of these things were done by this young seminarian. He taught me children's Bible stories and hymns that a child might learn in a Sunday school setting. I needed false papers and documentation, and I got them. I had a false birth certificate, a false baptismal certificate. An arrangement was made with a Christian family in our community that if the Nazis were to come into our town, I would be taken to this Christian home, left there till the war ended, and after the war, whoever in my family was blessed and lucky enough to have survived would come and get me. Not very complicated, done in various forms throughout Europe. And so the day came. The Nazis marched into our town. Started out by rounding up all the Jews on their knees. But my memory was not that, my first memory. It was, in fact, my father putting on a 4-year-old what seemed to a child an enormous amount of clothing. So many dresses I could barely put my hands down. He also took off my earrings. Very, very common for Nazi punks to grab a Jewish woman running and pull on her earlobe, removing her earrings without breaking her stride. A child was easy. All they had to do was reach out. My father took my hand and he and I started to walk towards the Christian home where he was about to leave me. And on the way, he noted that here and there a door would open up with what appeared to be the head of a household, with a small child at his side, would walk the child up to the SS and say something like, "I don't know who this is, not my child. Must be a Jewish child that wandered in here by mistake," and that's all it took. The child, the accompanying Jewish adult, killed immediately in front of everyone as an example to the rest of the Jewish population that they were serious, they meant business, they were not to be disobeyed. The family of the child located and killed. The Christian family punished as well, but not the same way, I promise you. Not the same way. It was one of the many mottos repeated over and over again by Hitler. He was going to make Europe Judenrein, clean of Jews, 0 Jews. If you killed a Jew, you weren't reprimanded. No Nazi soldier ever had to explain to anybody why he killed a Jew. The aim was 0. You killed somebody, you got a pat on the back. Now, of course, as I continue, there are exceptions to everything I'm telling you. There are some good Germans, of course, and there were some good Poles, and there were some good white Americans during slavery that helped black Americans in underground tunnels. Does that mean that we should forget the evils of slavery? Of course not. And there are people alive today, well-educated people, who claim this never happened. On this point, in my view, respectfully, no matter what their IQ and SAT scores are, they're idiots. The vast majority of Holocaust information, almost more than 95%, probably, comes from Nazi archives and records. We were not allowed to bring anything into these camps. Certainly, we were not encouraged to take notes and save the notes so we can share it with the free world if we survived. So their agenda is a different one. When my father saw this betrayal, he decided to gamble and keep me with him. As we survivors are getting older and older, and certainly there are fewer and fewer of us left, believe me when I tell you, some of us have already gone to the next world, not being 1,000% sure that the children or child we left in the care of others wasn't either turned over to the SS when we were moved out of the town, or sometimes the family became very fond of the child, baptized it, converted it, and hid it from the Jewish family member when someone came to get it after the war. We have evidence both ways, so there's not a question about that. And so my father and I turned around and started to walk towards the center of town to locate and join the rest of the family. By the time we got there, 20 to 30 minutes into this, two of my uncles were already dead. My father's youngest brother had a loaf of bread under his arm, and in the bread he stuffed some jewelry. Very common thing that people try to do is to hide small items of value on their person to be used later on for an extra crust of bread, for a favor. My uncle's bread fell to the ground and split open. The SS saw the jewelry, killed him, and his brother-in-law, another uncle, with him instantly. Around the large group of us, small clusters of people, pulled out of the community to help in our own demise and destruction. Strong-looking men dug ditches for mass graves. People shaved hair. People took gold out of inlay for that. Maybe. They got an extra crust of bread. The caloric intake of a Holocaust prisoner, 400 calories a day, 200 in the morning, 200 at night, a diet designed for death, not life. I never got any official rations. You got rations if you worked, if you were counted at night and at dawn to see how much food they needed, how many died, how many tried to escape. I didn't work. My aunt shared her food with me. And I had other ways too, as you will hear. One of the groups was being shot at. People were bleeding and screaming and dying and falling down. And in that group were my grandparents and my mother. My grandparents were very, very old. The very elderly would need help and assistance to even go on another transport truck to be moved elsewhere for more efficient killing. Why bother in that small setting? The disabled, killed. My mother, I was told, was recovering from extremely minor surgery. They weren't going to put her on a gurney, take her to a hospital, get her well, and then kill her. Why? This was all planned out. As soon as that massacre was over, we were quickly moved out of the center of town to a small holding camp not too far away. The camp was surrounded by electrified barbed wire. We were given armbands with yellow stars of David on them, and it was the moment of the end of our freedom. Different family members sent to different work camps, death camps. You really didn't know where they were going. You certainly didn't know if you'd ever see them again. My 16-year-old sister was sent to a place called Auschwitz, where at 16, she died in the ovens of Auschwitz simply and only, and for no other reason other than that she was born a Jew. And think about it. Ovens and crematoria are designed by educated architects. Next, my aunt, my father's sister, to whom I believe I owe my survival. One of the uncles killed her husband. She never had any children of her own, and many times when the SS would say, mothers and children, you're going to a Kinderheim, a children's home, my aunt would say she was my mother, knowingly or unknowingly taking her life into her own hands. Because the truth of the matter is that the vast majority of children gotten that way, they would say, mothers and children, you're going to a Kinderheim, a children's home. They said it that way, planned out, thought out. They knew they'd go up to a young mother and grab her baby from her. There would be screaming and crying and begging and pleading. They said, no, these are not stupid women. We'll tell them they're going with their babies. They will leave teenagers behind, not much younger than some of you in this audience, hoping you looked older, hoping you could pass an adult, hoping you would be put to work and live one more day. With each day, there was hope you might make it to yet another day. But a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, a 9-month-old, how could we survive on our own? And so these mothers left their other children, took their babies, went to what they thought would be a Kinderheim, a children's home. And the truth of it was they went to the ovens and gas chambers of the Holocaust. And my aunt always said she was my mother. She and I were sent to this small town, not too far away. Poland is a small country called Szczecin. It was a coal mining town. And what my father tried to do in the beginning, later on there was no possibility of it, he tried to keep track of us. Anyone that came into the camp he was in, it helped if they knew the family. If they didn't, he would describe his sister and his young daughter. If they said they thought they saw us with whatever of value he still had, he would bribe somebody and get us brought to where he was. And he found my aunt and I. Arrangement was made for her to be snuck out in the middle of the night. I was thrown over electrified barbed wire onto a large transport truck filled with coal. Both my aunt and I were buried under that coal, told not to cough, not to sneeze, not to make any noise. All vehicles during wartime are inspected with huge searchlights. Miraculously, my aunt and I were reunited with my father and brothers briefly, and then all 5 of us were sent to an enormous work camp in Poland. The camp was so large, it had so many parts and sections to it. From that moment on, I had no idea if my father and brothers were in the same camp, if they were dead, alive, elsewhere. They ceased to be a fact of my life. My aunt, however, was put to work in a munitions factory. And for some strange reason, 12 or 13 other small children in that camp. We speculate, we don't know. They let us run around because we were not an issue. Maybe they missed their own kids. Maybe it made them feel more human. But if they got tired of us, they didn't need permission. All they had to do was kill us. Nevertheless, our caregivers, my aunt daily would say to me, when I'm not with you, stay in the barracks. Hide if you hear footsteps. Don't be in anybody's face. I obeyed her. I wouldn't be here at Delta today. When I didn't, I got into trouble, and I'll explain in a second. During this almost 5-year period, I had typhoid, typhus, tuberculosis, never ever treated in the so-called infirmary. What do you think they would do with a Jewish child if you brought it in? Why would they get me well if they were going to kill me anyway? I had lice and rats in my hair. I stole. I ate toothpaste. I drank urine. I did whatever was necessary to fill my belly and stay alive. Many times, when a few of us children would wander out, we were told to hold hands and look up as they hung rows and rows of people and laughed while we children cowered. One time, a couple of SS soldiers looked at me, looked at each other, said, "Look at this hair. It's too pretty for a Jewish child," and shaved me bald. When my aunt came back from work, started to cry because she could barely recognize me, they beat her in front of me with a rubber hose. Many times when I wandered out, just for their own amusement, they would address enormous packs of German shepherds, talk to the dogs as though they were human and I was the dog. They would say to the dogs, "Mensch, beiß dem Hund," persons, bite this dog. And I was attacked and chewed on and bitten and mauled. and I begged, and I pleaded, and I cried. Eventually, they called the dogs off. The physical scars are well healed. The emotional scars are not. To this day. I go nowhere, I swear to you, that I don't make absolutely certain that the pet you own and love and I hope treat well, I'm not friends with anyone who mistreats a living thing, but that pet is behind a locked door. When I'm confronted with a loose animal, I have a flashback. I become once again that child of the Holocaust, screaming and begging and pleading for mercy. With it comes a loss of dignity. Sometimes I'm fine in just a few minutes, and other times it takes a lot longer. Next, my aunt and I were packed into cattle cars, railroad cars. The conditions are beyond description. All of your bodily functions performed right where you were standing. What I remember most of all, will never, cannot ever forget, were my aunt's screams as she begged the other inmates not to eat me alive. Real or not, those were her fears. That train was taking us to a place called Bergen-Belsen, where a young woman named Anne Frank died. She and her sister died within 4 weeks of arrival. By the time the Frank sisters got there, and even by the time we got there before, they were beginning to lose the war. Our train stopped a good distance outside the barracks. That was the custom. It was wintertime. We marched to the barracks on grounds that were solid ice. Our feet were so badly frozen, many of us, that when they began to thaw out, my aunt would stick her fist in my mouth. It's a very painful process, so that I wouldn't scream, because at that point they were beginning to lose the war. They wanted no witnesses. They were killing beyond randomly. Arriving in these barracks, women from all parts of Europe, Hungary, Romania, Czechoslovakia, France, most of these women had already lost their families and certainly their children. The sight of a child would literally break their hearts. This child did not care. I would go up to these different nationals. I would ask them to teach me a children's song in their own language, like Frère Jacques, London Bridge, or something like that. Then I'd go off into a corner and practice it. When I thought I knew the song well, I'd go back to the lady that taught me the song, and with my hand open, I would sing to her. And she would give me whatever little bit of food she had. Crying, I didn't care. I took it, and I never looked back. My aunt and I were liberated by the British in Bergen-Belsen. One of my brothers freed in a place called Buchenwald. The other of my brothers and father freed in a place called Theresienstadt in another country. At the moment of liberation, none of us knew of each other's survival. That came later. We, of course, needed medical attention. We went into refugee camps, DP camps, displaced persons camps, arriving in these camps. The churches, the synagogues, the Red Cross, the Quakers, newspapers, they all took down any information we gave them, an ad placed by a brother of mine. I am Jacob Norych, son of Israel Mordechai Norych, looking for family in the United States and anywhere else. He was a lot older than I. If I had been the only survivor, I wouldn't have known that my father actually had a brother in the United States. His name, no longer Norych, it was Warshawski. Immigrants that didn't speak the language very often on Ellis Island all took the same surname. It made it one step easier. My uncle read the ad in a Yiddish newspaper, recognized the family, the town, raised heaven and earth to get us to the United States on the first boatload of refugees to come out of the Holocaust. This was in May of '46. I entered kindergarten. The following September, 4.5 years behind grade level. Before I take your questions, and you can ask me anything, I don't have to answer it if I don't want. Let me say this to you. Very, very important. I question daily why I go and repeat and repeat and repeat. And sadly, the human condition gives us the answer. I do not understand how anybody can be spiritual in any way, believe in an all-knowing higher power, and be a racist, a bigot, or an anti-Semite. What is it you're thinking? You don't have to like everybody. You think that this higher power you believe in, that knows everything, sees everything, looked down one day and said, oops, I made a mistake. I made blacks and whites and Asians and Hispanics, I'll call on the bigots and the racists of this world to help me clean up my act. I don't think so, guys. What drives me is I don't want to give my enemy a victory. I don't want someone else to define my limits, my aspirations. What do you do when somebody says, don't even bother applying to college? They've got quotas, they're racist. You say, oh, thanks a lot. Now I can go on and do something and not fulfill my dreams. You're turning over your power to someone else. I will never do that. The world is difficult, but you and I can make a difference on a very tiny daily level. When someone says to you, all Jews are this, all blacks are this, all Asians or Hispanics are this, and you don't open your mouth and say, I don't know all these people. I will judge people by how I experience them one-on-one. I don't want to give Hitler a posthumous victory. To live less than a decent life is to fulfill my enemy's dreams. I have my own dreams. Words are extremely powerful. The words in the library of Dr. King, of Mother Teresa, of Jesus, of Moses, of Shakespeare will live long, long after you and I are gone. And if you think it's just a word and not a pollutant, think again. Words can make you cry and can hurt you so that you end up in therapy later on, or can make you go to war, or can make you compose a beautiful poem. Now, currently, what scares me, and always, is apathy and indifference and a lack of passion. The world was silent when this was happening. Look, there were elections in a faraway land called Austria recently. 27% of the vote went to an extreme rightist. Remember, the end result of evil apathy and evil and indifference starts with words, with conditioning subliminally, with, oh, he's just saying that. The world was silent. And as someone said, the Holocaust did not start with Auschwitz and Treblinka. It started with words. The idea had to be sold. Hitler did not do this alone. No despot does it. Now, when we are struggling daily, am I telling you that everything is rosy? There will always be racism, bigotry, and anti-Semitism. The degree to which it exists is up to you and me. Are the bigots, those fine folks that put on white sheets and funny hats, are they going to be mainstream society, or are they going to be relegated to meet in dark rooms with drawn curtains and locked doors and be the fringes of society? At the very least, say something. We were blessed, burdened, however you want to think of it, with free will. What we do with that free will is the journey and the challenge. And I thank you all, and I'll take your questions. Since I'm the speaker, I've changed my mind. I want to read something to you. Just take a minute. I saw it in the paper this morning, and it gave me great hope. Not because it was such a beautiful thing in and of itself, but because the struggle to be decent goes on. In today's Los Angeles Times, and it brought tears to my eyes, German president visits, seeks forgiveness. Words, again, guys, words. What an easy, you don't need a prescription. This president of Germany, Johannes Rau, opened his speech with an emotional apology for the Holocaust, the genocide of 6 million Jews by the Nazis during World War II. And he said this beautifully: "With the people of Israel watching, I bow in humility before those murdered, before those who don't have graves where I could ask them for forgiveness," said the 69-year-old Rao. He said he sought Israel's pardon for himself and his generation in order to enable coming generations of Germans and Israelis to forge to a future together, not forget. How's that for owning your piece of history? In his speech, Barak praised Germany for its leadership. This is the Israeli Prime Minister, Ehud Barak. Praised Germany for its leadership, the role of European Union and decision. And he said what was an isolated called Austria's coalition of shame, the 27 people I mentioned. Unlike Austria, the Israeli leader said Germany has confronted its past and tried to ensure the extremist groups cannot rise to power again. Words, guys. You don't need a PhD to be a mensch. You just have to respect life. Questions? Let me answer one before you even think about asking it. People apologize for 5 minutes usually before they ask it. I've had therapy, guys. It's not ongoing, but when I need it, it's helpful. Anyone else besides me? Sir, you need to speak up, guys.
Switzerland was supposedly neutral, and yet we find that they took hundreds of millions of dollars from the Jews that the Germans put over there. What do you think of maybe Germany using some words to try to convince the Swiss to let go of that money and give it back?
Well, the issue of Switzerland, it's been in the papers a lot. And you know what's interesting? I mean, that's a very complicated issue. I know little about it, but I tell you what does concern me about Switzerland, or the Switzerlands of this world. Switzerland was supposed to be neutral, was not. I mentioned in the body of my talk that nobody was going to take me to an infirmary. Each of the camps had an infirmary. I never met a survivor who ever was in an infirmary. The reason, I told you. Why would you go there if they were going to kill you? Anyway, they'd kill you. But we've also found out recently that the head of the International Red Cross was a Swiss man who had factories in Germany, who was a supporter of Hitler. No one does this alone. And the Swiss, to my view, the Swiss crime was that they looked the other way, that they did not inform their young people of their shame. So they come to the United States, they come to a lecture like this, and they're devastated. Words, again, thoughts, ideas are the most powerful thing there is. And I think the Swiss should, those people who had a part in it and didn't ask forgiveness have to think again. Yes, ma'am.
Do you feel that the Catholic Church committed the same crime by looking the other way?
Do I feel that the Catholic, I'm asked this question very often at Catholic universities. You know how thrilled I am about that? But I must say, it's an important question about the looking the other way of the church, of the Catholic Church. Listen, I'm not apologizing for what I'm about to say, but I need to say it. Individuals helped us. Simple farmers helped us. Priests individually helped us. But the church, Pius XII, was a friend of Hitler's. Read Hitler's Pope. It just came out. It's still in hardback. This was a man commissioned, the author by the church, to write a good picture of Pius XII, and when he started doing the research, was horrified. I believe, and this Pope has tried to address this issue, looking the other way is a sin. I also believe, and I've never heard anybody else say that, but what the heck. Again, what separates us from the animals. How about Hitler being excommunicated from the church in absentia as a sign of civility? How about it? Not done. I do think they were remiss in looking the other way. The church, most powerful religious body in the world. Yes, ma'am.
You feel that because Germany was undergoing economic hardship, that Hitler used the Jews to blame for everything that went wrong with the country, but then turned around and used the media to convince the German people that that's where the blame should fall? I'm not trying to excuse it, but
I know you're not.
you know what I'm saying?
Well, it's exactly what happened, but it doesn't excuse it. Listen, when Hitler came into office, there was such terrible economic condition in Germany. It was a ripe climate to blame it on the Jews. Get rid of the Jews and things will be better. We all know how that works. And they did get better. And the silent people that supported. But we know there were opportunities for German Nazi soldiers not to shoot, voluntarily not to shoot. You want to do this? Nobody turned it down. So whatever sales job he did a very good job. And a poor economy does not justify genocide. And I know you didn't mean it that way. I don't want the students to ever even think that way. Sir?
I want to say thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Ma'am?
Just how old were you when the Kristallnacht, or where exactly were you in Germany?
Kristallnacht, I don't really know. I was too young. I entered, if you missed it, I was 4 years old when all this started in my life, so I don't know exactly which camp I was in.
What year was it?
Kristallnacht was in 42, I think, 41 or 42.
Is it true that they gave tattoos to mark where it's from?
They branded us, and the purpose behind it is to dehumanize you. It's not a tattoo like a little flower that you have put on your ankle or something. It's very important. It's a number, which they then recorded, by the way. They did it to children in the beginning, but once they realized they were going to kill the children first, they stopped doing that. It was time-consuming, wasn't done in every camp, and that's one indignity I was spared. Anyone up there? Sir?
That's one concerning Joseph Mengele.
Yeah.
The experiments you did on the twins. Did any of that have to do with the modern-day mind control experiments, the stereotactic surgery that are going on today?
Well, sure, it was certainly influenced. We are influenced by history. The experiments on pregnant women and twins, that read the Nazi doctors. And there are ethical questions that come out of the experiments and research they did. And I'm very grateful that I'm not an ethicist and whatever else, that I would have to have a choice. They recorded everything. Any revisionists out there, get another cover for your racism or bigotry, because this one isn't going to work. It ain't going to work. Anyone else? Excuse me?
Where are those records that were kept on the twins today?
All the records, the Allies got together after the war and very wisely decided not to release everything all at once because there would be another war. So periodically, each of the countries, England, France, the United States, and Russia, are going to be releasing those. I don't know, they're all over the world. And most of them have been released. Yes, ma'am.
Was there ever just once, when you ever saw compassion in anybody's eyes when you were in camp? Not from a fellow Jew, but from somebody who...
The question is, was there ever once when I saw compassion? I don't remember it. You know the way I look at it, that the fact that I was allowed to be is the indifference was compassion. Yes?
What year did the Holocaust start?
39. What year did it start? Ma'am?
Today's paper said that Austria is
Hooray. Hello, hooray. You know, let me tell you, are we okay time-wise? Okay, let me, I have to listen to them. Let me just say one thing. In me, take a good look, so you know. In me, I have come to believe, I didn't always believe this, that non-interference is not such a good thing. It's a euphemism sometimes for apathy. That symbolism counts. We are human beings after all. Animals in the jungle don't need symbolic behavior. They don't mourn for a year after somebody dies, or sit shiva as we do. So we have the blessing and the burden of memory. And when a symbolic act is done, civil disobedience, properly, justly, for the right reasons, I applaud it. I don't applaud violence. So if this man was not allowed into the Holocaust Museum, I say hooray. One more question, right here.
Thanks. The census that's taking place right now throughout the country, do you feel that's Big Brother watching you or not?
You're all going to, I don't know what you're going to think when I leave here, but the census, do I think it's Big Brother watching you? Listen, guys, that's this tantamount to saying, it's a democracy, I can do what I want. Total doing what you want, you don't do it in your families, do you? You don't do it here either, it's anarchy. In a democracy, we give up certain rights. We need space, we need to know how to plan. I don't have a problem with the census, but I don't want to be asleep when everything else is going on. Thank you all very much. Did you think I forgot about you?
If we could just keep everyone in your seats for just a moment. On behalf of Delta College and the associated student body, we'd like to thank Ms. Geller for being here today and sharing her experience with us. At this time, I have the pleasure of presenting a gift certificate from our bookstore for $50 to Ms. Geller. And the ASB would like to present Ms. Geller with an ASB polo shirt.
I wear mine all the time.
And one of our ASB bags.
Which I read. Thank you.
If everyone would like to join us in the Mustang Room located in Danner Hall, there will be a reception that starts at 12:30 and will end at 1:30. Thank you.
Please come. Thank you all.